What does it mean to be truly wealthy? Would $100,000 a year do it for you? $1 million? More? Or maybe it's not simply a matter of money.
This is Signs of the Times Radio with Kent Kingston.
Welcome to Signs of the Times Radio. I'm your host, yes, Kent Kingston, and with me on the phone from beautiful tropical Mackay or Mackay, I'm not sure, we'll have to ask him, Maciej Kubarek. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, Kent. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Any thoughts on Mackay versus Mackay?
Oh, look, I've always gone with Mackay, but I've met those people that sort of lean to Mackay, and I have to be honest, it's confused me sometimes as well.
Okay, fair enough. So you're there living in Mackay with your wife and your sausage dog Hugo, I understand.
That's correct.
What are you doing there?
Okay, so I'm pastoring two churches here. I'm basically sort of like an associate pastor in this region, and working in the Northern Australian Conference for the last 2.5 years, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. For the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
For the Seventh-day Adventist Church, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, great, excellent. And I understand that you're a keen Signs Radio podcast listener. Is that right?
I am actually. I'm a big fan of you guys. I tune in often when I'm on the road and listening to your episodes. The last one on veganism was pretty good. So I love it. I enjoy it.
Oh, excellent. So tell me which platform are you listening on?
Well, it's interesting you asked that, because I was actually listening in on Castbox to begin with. Mm-hmm. But I like to sort of play around with my apps a little bit, and I've actually recently switched back to Spotify now. Okay. But I'll be honest, like I catch you guys on pretty much any platform that I look up there. You guys are always there, so that's really cool.
Oh, that's good. It's interesting you mentioned Spotify, because that's actually my preferred platform for podcasts as well. So for our listeners out there, I guess particularly if you're listening on Faith FM and you think, hey, this is great, love this show. I didn't catch the beginning of it, or I'm thinking, wow, I'd like to hear some earlier episodes. Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely listen via just about any podcast platform. And we also, welcome people to jump onto our website, signsofthetimes.org.au, and there's a podcast link there, all the episodes there, as well as the articles, as well as links to our social media presence, yada, yada, yada. It's all there. Yeah. That's sort of the hub for us, signsofthetimes.org.au. But look, I'm just really excited that we're talking not just to one of our Signs authors for the month of October, but also a listener of the podcast. So it's cool. I'm not sure we've really done that before.
Oh, well, it's fantastic. I really enjoy it.
That's tops. Now, Maciej, you wrote an article for us in the October magazine, as I mentioned, entitled The Gift or the Present. And you kicked off talking about how you have joined this viral sensation of reading this book that came out several years ago now, but it's still very popular, The Barefoot Investor by Scott Pape. So tell me how that happened.
Yeah, I actually didn't know sort of at the time when I was introduced to the book that it was viral, but because I sort of only thought that it was, one of those financial books, that's full of graphs and boring numbers, and it's got nothing to do with me. But I was introduced to it at some of our pastors' meetings. As a pastor, I'm sort of involved in meetings annually with other pastors in the Seventh-day Adventist Church here in Northern Australia. One of our staff on our administration team here in the conference here in Northern Australia introduced this book to us. And at the time I sort of completely wrote it off. I thought, why go through another finance book? But they were really plugging it as something exciting. And eventually, sitting down with one of my employers, they said, look, I'll give you a personal copy of this book, free of charge. And I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose, I guess.
Yeah, look, I'm totally with you there. I'm really not the guy who picks up, personal development books and, manage your finances and, and your wealth, grow your wealth, yada, yada, yada. It's like, oh, yeah, kill me now. But I similarly, I actually got it from my public library free, so wouldn't fork out for it. But yeah, it seems like he's really down to earth, Scott Pape, and has a lot of really practical sort of things about how to manage your personal finances. And so I guess it is different to perhaps some of the perceptions that you might expect from a finance book. What did you sort of get out of it in particular?
Well, I think the most that I got out of it was really the opening chapters, because when I opened the book up, I thought that it was going to be, like I said before, graphs, numbers, all of these different things, how to successfully manage your financial future and all the stats to do with that. But it was nothing like that. He actually starts the book off by talking about the principles of how we use our money. And he starts off by sort of sharing how most people in Australia, when they purchase something, anything, how it is with us in our lives, we sort of really revolve around our stuff. We bring something home, he says in the book, and then we put it on the kitchen table and we admire it. We're excited about it. Yeah. But then in the course of time, we eventually take that item and put it in some closet or drawer or cupboard to sort of hide it, that we're not proud that we purchased that. And eventually it makes its way into the garage and it never makes it out of there,
unless it's to the op shop or to the hard rubbish collection. That happens a few times every year.
Yeah. And, in 6 years, he was saying that most of the stuff we buy, it's in the dump. So really sort of reframes your perspective on how we prioritize things, and that was, I think, in answer to your question, that was the first thing that sort of really got me. He's speaking to personal experience in the book. Yeah. So, yeah.
Sounds like it's sort of real. So, I mean, you by the sound of your voice, and I know I met you up in Townsville early this year, and, g'day to anyone who's listening from Townsville. You're a younger guy. I guess you'd put yourself in the millennial category. Yeah. When it comes to money management and millennials in Australia today, like, what is there a sort of overarching generational attitude towards money and money management and budgeting and finance, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I think, I would definitely class myself as a millennial. And, for me personally, like, first couple years in the job, you're making money, you're not making heaps. Not that that's the point anyway, but you sort of don't really, I guess, value the principles as much of saving or the need to save. You're thinking more in terms of splurging and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. And there are so many like easy loans out there and credit cards, and suddenly when you're earning a regular wage, it's like woohoo! It's very easy to sort of boost your lifestyle to the level that you're earning, or usually just a little bit above. So you always feel like you're just barely keeping your head above water, eh?
Well, that's right. Yeah, you see the zeros in the account and you get excited at first, but yeah, you are humbled at the same time because you realize you could always make more. That type of mentality that you have, that it's never enough, I guess.
So as you've, I guess, been working for a couple of years now, you're married, you've got a dog, this is sort of stable kind of family life, not living with mum anymore, and and relying on parents for your income and for your living. What are some of the basic lessons that you've begun to learn in those early years?
Not to be a superhero with your finances, not to think that you're invincible just because you have money. I think this is one of the things that Scott Pape brings out in his book. Some of us, we think to ourselves, I wish that I had more, like I just mentioned. And then he sort of asks the question, it's fair enough that one might think that you need more money, but then you got to ask yourself, how much is enough? Mm-hmm. And I've heard some people say it's never enough.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so you get to that stage where you realize you are earning a certain amount, and so it's not about having more, but making the most of what you do have. And Scott, in his book, through principles on how to live to the utmost financially on what you do actually have, and since implementing his principles in my personal finances, I just find things now that they're way more sort of organized, you know?
Yeah, even if you don't take on the techniques that he recommends, or it at least forces you to sort of think about it, doesn't it? You know, how you plan, the way you manage your money, what is your attitude, you know, towards finances, what are your values, you know, what's most important in your life. It does kind of force you to confront those questions, doesn't it?
It does, and I love that thing that you mentioned right there, Kent, that even if you don't necessarily take his principles on, because I haven't fully taken on absolutely everything that he's mentioned in the book. I've changed things around and done it to sort of fit my context, my financial context.
Yeah.
But the overarching principle that I sort of take from his book, that's what's really helped me to have better control of my money, know where I'm spending what money's going where, and at the end of the day, it just means you have greater peace of mind.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Now, what I find interesting about this, Mache, is that, you know, you being a pastor in particular, that sometimes I guess we think, well, you know, there's the everyday sort of life that we live that involves, you know, going to the shops and paying off your personal loan and, you know, and that sort of stuff. And then you go to church on the weekend and it's all sort of, you know, holy, holy, holy. And you forget about all that, you know, all that everyday stuff that you worry about during the week. You sort of enter a spiritual space that's a separate place to you know, to your everyday money management issues. And I mean, you coming from an Adventist background, you know, would understand that, you know, Adventists in particular, you know, don't do business on Sabbath, don't even often like handling money on Sabbath unless it's to, you know, sort of put it in a, you know, to donate it in a collection, you know, when they pass the hat around. But you say in your article that you believe that the Bible actually has things to say about how we manage our money. And I think you use it's actually becoming more of a popular term. I'm hearing it around all sorts of places, and that's stewardship. So can you explain to us where you see the links between, you know, faith and the Bible and our everyday decisions that we make about our, you know, our money and our resources and how we spend them?
Yeah, that link sort of feeds into your life in many ways, because when we're talking about the area of stewardship in particular, it's, yes, money is a big part of it, but I guess everything falls into that category. You know, the way we look after our bodies, our health, the way we look after the environment, the way that we nurture the relationships we share with other people, it's all to do with what we've been given in life. And that necessarily doesn't mean that whatever that is material, like money. But what it does mean, and particularly in the faith context, is that because I have that belief in God and that love for God, I want to make the most out of my life that I can. And that also means making the most of what I have, be it money, relationships, or anything that I'm blessed with, that I possess, if I can use that word.
Yeah. And it's interesting that I heard you, you know, use phrases like, you know, what we've been given or what we've been blessed with. And it seems that this is a really important sort of undergirding principle, like underneath the word stewardship. It's more than just wise management of what you have. The idea of stewardship is saying you actually don't own, like you and I, you know, we don't own anything that we have. Everything that we have has been, you know, given to us. I guess from a spiritual point of view, yeah, God has, you know, allowed us to be alive in the first place and has given us all our natural abilities. You know, we're born within a particular family in a particular country. And then I guess there's even like taking the God sort of thing out of it. There is the, you know, our genetics that we inherit from our parents, the fact that we are, you know, might be born in a relatively rich and safe country like Australia. You know, so much of what we have is given to us, and that's a really sort of fundamental undergirding principle when it comes to the word stewardship, isn't it?
Yeah, it does, because essentially what it's saying is what you have isn't necessarily yours.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing for some of us to stomach, because some of us might think to ourselves, well, hang on a second, I Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, I go to work, I work hard to earn what I have.
Yeah.
But when you really think about it, even just the ability to go to work, to pursue a passion in life, or even just to have life itself, it's all a gift. Like I've been reflecting on that quite a bit recently. When you think about it, none of us even had a say in whether to be alive or not,
Yeah.
And that feeds into what you're saying, like what family we end up being born into. Nobody came to us with a contract saying, do you want to sign up for 80 or whatever it is years of life on earth with this amount of stuff? Would you be happy to have that?
Yeah.
We were just sort of born into it, and it was given to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you come to that realization that everything we have is essentially a gift, we did nothing to earn it. What are the implications of that? Like, what does that do in terms of changing our attitude or even our behavior when it comes to managing those things that we have been given?
Yeah, well, that's sort of like if you gifting you a vehicle, or even just borrowing it to you for a while.
Yeah.
You sort of look after that thing a whole lot more than, say, you bought one. And I guess even when we buy something new, we treasure it at the beginning. We think, oh, it's amazing. But as we use it over time,
Yeah.
and then we buy into the belief that this is more ours now, right? And so we don't treat as much care. But yeah, you have to constantly remind yourself that this thing that I have, this body that I have, this life that I have, the people that I have in life, these are all things that were given to me that I didn't work for. I'm in a situation at the moment where I'm actually renting off a landlord,
Yeah.
In my case, for example, the house that I'm in, this isn't my house. And when you live in it, I've been living in it for about 2.5 years now. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I've been here for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And you feel like it becomes more your home the more time you spend in it. But then you still remind yourself, hang on, I'm accountable to someone for the way I look after it. And I guess that goes into any life. We take care of things more. We're more intentional about whatever we have when we're a bit more accountable to someone else for how we look after it.
Yeah, sure. And in your article, you hint, well, I think you probably do more than hint at the fact that even, this planet that we're on, we can see in that sense, we are tenants, not owners. The planet Earth has been given as a gift to us, and therefore it's our duty to look after it. But I mean, is this just a sort of a hipster, environmental, greeny sort of message for you, or do you actually legitimately see that message coming out of the Bible?
Well, yeah, I believe that message comes out of the Bible, because the opening chapters of the Bible, when you open it up to the very first page, you encounter this verse where it says that God created, the heavens or the earth or everything that we see.
Yeah.
And that places on God the ownership of everything that is made, and gives him the right to call it his, which means that it's not our right just to sort of trash the earth or not take care of the environment. Yeah.
Okay. So God is a creator, and I guess we also have God literally saying to those first humans, to Adam and Eve, saying, "Hey, this is the planet. These are all the living things on it. I give you," and this depends on which Bible translation you look at. Some say, "I give you dominion over it," which is basically, a lot of people have criticized that language, saying, "Look, the Judeo-Christian tradition says that we're to dominate the planet and we're in charge of it and we can exploit it as much as we want," because that word dominion is used like right there in the beginning of the Bible, as you say in Genesis. Is that an accurate understanding of what dominion means? Like, just I don't know if you know the Hebrew or whatever, or just the wider context.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Kent, because we can sort of sometimes look at God as, well, some people may have this view of God that he pulls the strings sort of thing, and if we think of him as owning everything, there is a temptation to think he wants to control. But even just that verse that you mentioned there, the idea that he gives dominion, in other words, it's sort of showing that God is sovereign overall. Mm-hmm. He has the ability to give us things, which means that ultimately he still remains sovereign. But at the same time, what it does show about God's character too is that God is just so willing to delegate things to us as human beings that he has made. He has given that to us sort of like a landlord to a tenant, but he gives us the freedom to use what he has given us, and he encourages us to make the most of the planet and the dominion that we have. So.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I guess your article focuses on a money and possessions aspect as well. How do you see that principle of stewardship and that sense of God being the owner and us having the responsibility to manage what he's given us? How does that work out practically for you in terms of your attitude and towards money and possessions and what you actually do then?
Well, it sort of gives me a bit more of a humble perspective with my money. First of all, I realize that I'm not the richest person in the world, but I'm not Bill Gates or some celebrity in a mansion. I'm not invincible. But at the same time, I do realize that at the end of the day, I do have money. Maybe even the fact that I don't have a lot of it means that I have to be sort of more careful with how I use it. Because, like we were mentioning before, for some, the thought is, I wish I had more. But knowing that you have some, that allows you to then go, well, how can I use what I am earning so that I can live the best life possible to the glory of God rather than for myself? And it also means that, like one of the things, just speaking practically here, Ken, one of the things that we've done, my wife and I, is we've sort of sectioned off part of our finances and created this account called Splurge, right?
Splurge, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Splurge,
and
right?
that's a Scott Pape Barefoot Investor thing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think he probably does mention it somewhere in that book. Our lives are really governed by things, and we look around and we see stuff and we go, oh, I want that, and I want that. But what we've actually done is we've sectioned off like a percentage to go into Splurge, which ends up being $100 or whatever it is. And then we go, that's the amount of money for this fortnight that we use for like selfish purposes,
Yep.
A movie date, a dress, something that I really, really want online. That's what that account is for. You spend stuff out of that one for your own selfish gain.
Yep.
And then when you use that up, that's it. If you've used it up for the fortnight or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which then balances you out a bit more and allows you to focus on, in the other accounts I pay off, my responsibilities or whatever else it is I have to do. And you organize your life more in that way. Because for me, before that, it was like I didn't know what I could splurge on, if I could use that word again.
Yeah.
What I could splurge on where. I feel that now I'm, more responsible actually in the way that I use my money.
Yeah, sure. Do you think it's also, would be a good idea to set aside another sort of account? I mean, you talked before about, living your life or spending your money to the glory of God, which is obviously a very sort of religious phrase, and it'd be interesting for you to unpack that. But I wonder if some of it might not mean to set some money aside to be generous to others, to give to charity, to think not just of yourself, but to, think of other needs that are out there.
Exactly right, Kent. And that's what then leads you to, reflect on, hang on, my money is not just all about me at the end of the day. There are other people, it's so easy for me to forget this sometimes, that aren't as fortunate as me. And so, Evie and I, we sort of find ways in which we can benefit other people through some of the other accounts that we use in that pool of money that we have. And we are able to then communicate better about it. We realize how much we make, we realize how much we can give, and that way it's not just all about us. And I think that sort of feeds into using what you have for honoring God in your life.
Yeah. No, that's good. I really like what you're saying. I mean, some people might be tempted to say, to feel guilty, anytime they spent money on themselves or, had a bit of a splurge, as you say. But I think we all recognize that there is a time in our lives for a little bit of extravagance, a little bit of luxury, a little bit of sort of spoiling yourself. But I really see the self-discipline in there that you're talking about, that, it's important. It sort of, makes me feel happy and everything, but I'm going to limit it. I'm going to control it. And also to think it's not my only priority to make myself happy, but there are other people out there who need things as well. It does really sort of speak to an underlying attitude. I think it's important. Now, just as we finish, because we've only got a couple of minutes now, Marche, believe it or not, in your article, you talk about the principle of fruitfulness. Can you just explain, this is a biblical concept, but how do you see this affecting our everyday lives?
Well, with the idea of fruitfulness, it's basically talking about, it's taking that analogy of, fruit that grows off a tree.
Of a tree, yeah.
Yeah, you sort of expect that an apple tree is going to give you apples, or a peach tree is going to give you peaches. Yeah, and speaking about our everyday lives, you sort of place things in an area in your life where you, for example, with the whole giving to other people or charities or just using it for God's work, you see fruitfulness not necessarily financially, but you see the way in which it uplifts and benefits other people in their lives. And there's this whole idea as well in the Bible that we probably don't have time to get into, this whole idea of setting aside a tenth of everything that we have and giving it to God. And then you sort of watch and see the way in which God blesses you in your life, even though giving him a tenth of what you have may seem like a scary or uncertain thing, and it seems like a lot. Yeah, so the idea of being fruitful basically means that you see the consequences of the way that you use your money, the way that you use your resources. You see how when you give to God or when you give to other people, you're able to see how it benefits other people in their lives. Sometimes when like we mentioned just before, when you give to others, you're sort of a bit scared because you think, I'm giving to someone else. But you always are, and you see how it brings joy to other people's lives. You live your life more in service for other people. You don't think about just spending for yourself, and you're always fine at the end of the day. You don't end up on the street. God continues to bless your life and look after you, and it's really awesome stuff.
Yeah, wow, that is, and look, it's a big challenge, I guess, for a lot of us who, we can tend to sort of keep our money sort of hugged fairly close to our chest, and that need for generosity can be a real challenge, especially when we feel like we're struggling ourselves. But hey, thanks so much, Marche. I really appreciate what you've challenged us with, in regards to money, possessions, and even, I guess, our time, our planet, our family, all the incredible blessings and resources we have. And it's just fantastic that you've challenged us today to think more carefully about how we use those.
Thank you so much, Kent, and thank you for having me on the podcast as well.
Today's episode was based on an article appearing in this month's Signs of the Times magazine. A subscription is just $26 for 11 issues a year. To find out more, visit signsofthetimes.org.au. Signs of the Times has been published in Australia since 1886 and is proudly produced by Adventist Media.
This is an Adventist Media podcast.